Mom, that's the man from my dream. The little girl's words cut through the gentle hum of the cafe like a shard of glass. Her small finger pointed across the room toward a man in a dark suit, his attention buried in his laptop, his face framed by morning light slanting through the window. And for one impossible second, time itself seemed to stop. The mother froze, her heart stumbling in her chest. She followed her daughter's gaze and met eyes with him, deep, storm-gray eyes that widened the moment they landed on her. A flicker of confusion, then recognition, and something that looked a lot like pain, and that was how their story began. Amelia had promised herself she'd never look back. After her husband's sudden passing 3 years ago, life had become about survival, getting through mornings without breaking down, making sure her daughter, Lily, had enough laughter to mask the ache that lingered in their small apartment. She worked long hours as a pastry chef, balancing bills and bedtime stories, the scent of sugar and coffee becoming the rhythm of their days. That morning had been like any other, except Lily had woken up unusually quiet. The little girl, barely 6, sat on the edge of her bed with her hair a tangle of gold, her face serious. Mommy, she'd whispered, I had the dream again. Amelia had knelt beside her, brushing back a strand of hair. The dream about the butterflies? Lily shook her head. No. About the man. The one who found us. Amelia had smiled gently, thinking it was another of Lily's whimsical imaginations. And what did he do? He said, Lily whispered, her voice trembling with certainty, I finally found you. The words lingered in Amelia's mind long after they left the house. Now, standing in that cafe, Amelia stared across the room at the man her daughter had pointed to, the man from her dream. He looked out of place among the warm tones of the cafe, an elegant figure, sharply dressed, carrying the cool distance of someone used to power. There was something magnetic about him, though, something that tugged at a part of her she couldn't name, and as if he'd felt it too, the man Ethan Cole looked up for a moment, their eyes locked. The noise around them dimmed. His expression faltered, a subtle frown curving into disbelief. He blinked, as if trying to make sure she was real. Then, almost in a whisper, he said, It's you. Ethan Cole didn't believe in fate. Numbers, mergers, contracts, those were things he could control. But this moment? This woman standing in front of him, pale from shock, her daughter clinging to her side? It made his pulse quicken in a way no business deal ever had. 3 years ago, Ethan had survived a car crash that had nearly ended his life. He'd lost fragments of memory, people, places, faces. But ever since, he'd had dreams that felt too vivid to ignore. A woman's laughter. A little girl's voice calling daddy. The sound of rain and the smell of cinnamon. He had dismissed them as side effects of trauma until now. Amelia didn't recognize him at first. But when he said her name, softly, like he'd been keeping it safe all this time, her breath hitched. How do you know my name? She asked. Ethan hesitated. Because. I think I've been looking for you. From that day on, their lives began to intertwine in ways neither expected. Ethan returned to the cafe often, always ordering the same caramel latte, always sitting by the window where he'd first seen her. He told himself it was coincidence, but deep down, he knew it wasn't. He was drawn to Amelia and Lily with a pull he couldn't rationalize. Amelia tried to resist. He was a CEO, a man with more wealth and power than she'd ever known. She was a single mother, barely managing rent. Their worlds were galaxies apart. Yet every time he smiled at Lily, every time his voice softened when he said Amelia's name, something inside her unraveled. But just as the warmth began to bloom between them, reality struck out. A headline splashed across the internet: Ethan Cole engaged to heiress of Kingsley Enterprises. Amelia's heart dropped when he walked into the cafe that day. She didn't look up. Congratulations, she said, her tone flat, her hands trembling as she poured coffee. Ethan's voice broke slightly. It's not what you think. Then what is it? She asked quietly. Because my daughter dreamed about you before she met you, and now you're standing here, asking me to believe that fate, of all things, brought us together? You belong to another world, Ethan. Go back to it. Lily stood silently, her eyes brimming. But, Mommy, she whispered, he's the man from my dream. Amelia's heart fractured. She turned away. Weeks passed. The cafe felt colder without him. Ethan called off the engagement, a decision that cost him his company's biggest merger. He'd built his empire on logic, but for the first time in his life, he was following something deeper, something he couldn't explain. He returned to the cafe one last time, under a sky heavy with rain. Amelia stood behind the counter, wiping a cup that was already spotless. You shouldn't be here, she said softly. I had another dream, he replied. This time, it wasn't about the past. It was about the future. You were there. Lily was laughing. And he hesitated, his voice trembling, was home. Tears stung her eyes. She wanted to be angry, but his words broke through the wall she'd built. Why me, Ethan, she whispered. You could have anyone. He stepped closer. Because you're the one who feels like peace. And for the first time since her husband's death, Amelia let herself cry, not from grief, but from hope. Lily ran into his arms, giggling through her tears. I told you, Mommy. He's the man from my dream. Ethan knelt, meeting the little girl's eyes. And now that I found you, he said, voice breaking, I'm never letting you go. Months later, the cafe was filled with laughter again. Ethan had invested in Amelia's dream to open her own bakery, the scent of cinnamon rolls drifting into the street. Lily's drawings covered one corner of the wall, each one featuring 3 smiling figures beneath a bright sun. Life had not given them what they expected. It had given them something better, and whenever customers asked how they met, Amelia would smile softly and say, "It started with a dream and a little girl who believed in it." The story's message lingered like the aftertaste of warm coffee. Sometimes, the people meant to find us don't just walk into our lives, they've been looking for us all along. Rain drummed softly against the window that night, a quiet rhythm that filled the small cafe long after closing. Amelia stood by the counter, her apron still on, her hands wrapped around a cup of tea that had gone cold. The closed sign swayed slightly in the wind, and outside, the city lights blurred like distant stars. It had been weeks since Ethan had come back into their lives, weeks since Lily's innocent declaration had changed everything. Yet, Amelia's heart was still tangled between fear and something far more dangerous, hope. She couldn't deny the truth anymore. Ethan Cole wasn't just some man from her daughter's dream. He had become the man she couldn't stop thinking about, the one who made her believe that maybe, just maybe, she could start over. But love, for her, was not a fairy tale. It had always come with loss. That night, as she wiped down the counter, the door chimed. She turned, startled. Ethan stood there, drenched from the rain, his dark hair clinging to his forehead, his suit jacket dripping. He looked exhausted, like he'd run through a storm to get there. "Ethan, what are you doing here?" she asked, her voice unsteady. He gave a breathless laugh. "I didn't know where else to go." Amelia frowned. "What happened?"